my ex-wife is listening to the programme this morning so that she can understand how much damage she has done. That's from John on the A1. Thank you so much for listening. Adrian's next.
Thanks, Nicky. This is Adrian Chiles. In today's show, veganism. There are more than 500,000 vegans in the UK not eating or using animal products at all. Jeremy Corbyn's been a vegetarian for yonks, but now he says he wants to be a vegan, but he says he's struggled to give up his favourite cheese, Somerset Brie. I'm a bit vegan, if you can be a bit vegan. I want to know your experiences. What are you missing? Is it so hard to stick to it?
First for news and more live Premier League football than anyone.
Who managed to get a Playmobil pirate ship launched by his two little boys to sail all the way to Scandinavia. It's carrying on its travels now. Always going to go across the Atlantic. So well done to them. Look forward to where that ends up next. Getting a bit more traction on the vegan story. This is because Jeremy Corbyn, having for years been a vegetarian, now says the next logical step is to be a vegan. Many of you are most unsympathetic. JW, as I said earlier, says, why do vegans always have to tell everybody? Boring. I don't want to know what Mr. Corbyn eats. Some vegans are prone to bang on about being vegan, I must say. I've done it myself from time to time, trying to cut down on that. Pete the Milkman, well, he's obviously not a vegan, is he? If he's delivering milk, I suppose you could logically not drink it. Why is it hard to stay vegan? Bacon. A life without bacon is a life without happiness, says Pete the Milkman. I can do without bacon. I do. It's pork pies. I have dreams about pork pies. It's most unsettling, but that's kind of what I miss. Colonel Burchell in Leicester, dear vegans, if we're not supposed to eat animals, why are they made of meat? Like most vegetarians and vegans, I have heard that one before, but I'll broadcast it anyway, Colonel Burchell. And Carolyn Paul says, wow, I'd love to see what a vegan Prime Minister would or could do for this country. I might just vote Labour. I don't know whether he's suggesting it's going to affect policy, I should say, Carol, but you're entitled to your opinion. Joanne in Sheffield says, I've been vegan for the last 3.5 years. People always say that vegans are always going on about being vegan. But in my experience, once people find out you're vegan, because they hear you ordering vegan food, they get obsessed with it and ask a million questions. Joanne, you are 100% right. This is precisely what happens. Questions like, how'd you get enough protein? Don't you miss bacon? What you don't eat from an animal? What you don't eat anything from an animal? Not even tuna, etc., etc. Surely, Joanne, you've also heard the one about, but there'd be no lambs or cows in our nice fields if we were all vegan. You must have heard that one too. Or, well, we've always eaten meat for all the existence of humanity. Have you heard that one too, Joanne? I sympathise, I must say. It's non-vegans who can't stop talking about it rather than the other way around. Well, I think we're all guilty, to be fair. Do please contribute, 85058. You've got experience of being a vegan, or you're sick of hearing people bang on about being vegans. If you'd like to share your experiences, do call 08085 909 693 or text 85058. It's almost 10:30.
More live Premier League football than...
Indeed to both of you.
Thank you.
That's Sarah Ledbetter and Lynn Renison. Just gone 22:11. There are 2 million adults in the UK who are vegetarian, but when it comes to going vegan, stopping eating or using any forms of animal product, things are a bit more difficult. The Labour leader, Jeremy Corbyn, who hasn't eaten meat or fish for almost half a century, has revealed he believes switching to a vegan diet is the next logical step, as he puts it. But first he needs to summon enough willpower to forgo his passion for cheese, in particular Somerset Brie. Despite the number of British vegans rising by 350% to just over 500,000 in the past decade, there are many more who are against eating animal products in principle, but fall down when it comes to making the full transition. That's according to the Vegan Society. So how difficult is it to live a life free of animal products? Do you long to go completely vegan, but just find there's something you simply couldn't go without? Or like me, you're perfectly all right being vegan at home, but on your travels, it's just next to impossible. You just end up eating a load of crisps and bread. That's about the only thing you can get while you're on the move. Give us a call with your experiences, 08085 909 693. Text me on 85058. 85058 or on social media. It's at BBC 5 Live using the hashtag 5LiveDaily. Dominica Payaseca is a spokesman from the Vegan Society. Just explain to us, I don't know, not from an animal rights point of view necessarily, but the arguments for veganism environmentally.
Okay, good morning, Adrian.
Morning.
So most vegans actually choose the vegan lifestyle for ethical reasons, but there are also some who are concerned with the huge impact that animal agriculture has on the environment. So what we eat actually has a huge impact on climate change and the natural environment. The global animal farming industry creates as much greenhouse gas emissions as the whole transport sector combined. And I would encourage those concerned about the environment to take our week-long challenge, Plate Up for the Planet, and it will show you how much CO2 you've saved compared to a meat-eating equivalent of the meals, and you can take that challenge on vegansociety.com.
But there is plenty of research to suggest that what you say is true. I've also seen many counter-arguments. There's research that does point out you've still got to use fossil fuels to farm the land to make the vegetables as well. So it's not totally carbon neutral, I think, growing vegetables instead of having animals.
No, it's not, but there are always two sides to any story. And in fact, it's actually much more efficient to consume crops directly rather than feed them to farmed animals and then eat the animals, because the animal will eat much more crops than you will in your entire lifetime. In their entire lifetime, they will eat more crops than you will directly. So it's actually much more efficient to just eat the grain right away.
So what about the argument about palm oil? Because an awful lot of vegan products are made with palm oil, and there are massive arguments against the use of palm oil because it does involve a lot of deforestation. Where are you on that? Something that the WWF is often tweeting about.
Palm oil is included not just in vegan products, it's actually in the majority of products that are not vegan as well. And yes, it's a difficult issue, and if someone can try to avoid it, then it does help the environment. But veganism is actually not about the environment as much. It's mostly about recognizing the rights of the sentient living beings that the animals are, to live lives free from human interference. Vegans basically recognize them as that, and all we want as vegans is simply not to harm animals through our choices of food.
So how far do you take it? I take it you don't wear silk clothes?
That's right. So veganism includes not eating animals, choosing clothing free from animal ingredients, and also not supporting the use of animals in entertainment and for any other purpose. So
right.
The Vegan Society's definition includes the phrase as far as possible and practicable. So unfortunately, we live in a non-vegan world, so we have to make amends. You know, we can't stop taking medicines because they were tested on animals, but we can try to push for better regulation and for alternatives to those, to animal testing, for example. And we encourage people to go as far as possible.
And what's the argument against honey? Don't bees produce it anyway? So people are always coming up with these arguments with me, and I'm just doing the same to you now. But I've forgotten what the argument is against honey.
Right, honey is an animal product, and we take it away from the bees and replace it with a mixture of water and sugar, which is detrimental to the health. So bees are animals as well, and this is why vegans don't eat honey either.
And what's your view on people, sort of a bit like me, who just find it too difficult to be vegan all the time? When you're out and about eating out, particularly, I don't know any other vegans really. Most of my friends are meat eaters, so we go to restaurants or cafes or whatever, and there's very rarely anything vegan there to eat at all, actually. So you do end up eating cheese or maybe the odd egg or whatever. I mean, I've met vegans who would consider me the absolute scum of the earth and a complete hypocrite for taking that stance.
I would say it's becoming much more easier, especially in the recent years, to eat out. For example, Zizzi's Pizza Express, Wagamama, Nando's, Pret, Wetherspoons, all of those places have a lot of vegan options now. You can even get a vegan burger in McDonald's if you order it without mayonnaise. So I would say veganism is really becoming much easier, but as with any lifestyle change, vegan living will take a little practice to get used to it, but after a few weeks it will feel as natural as anything. And vegans are a very helpful bunch of people. You can find a lot of help and support online, for example, on various Facebook groups and forums. And of course, you can always contact us here at the Vegan Society. We have a weekly and monthly challenge for people interested in veganism, and you can sign up for free at vegansociety.com, and we'll be there to support you.
Okay. Shona Wilkinson joins us, who's a nutritionist. Now, there are nutritional sort of red lights or warning lights for vegans. Where are you on this? What are the dangers of being vegan in your view as a nutritionist?
Hi, Adrian. Yeah, I mean, you can have healthy vegans and you can have unhealthy vegans, as you can with any other diet choice that people have. There's a few things that you just have to be a little bit more careful about, and I guess the main one is vitamin B12, which you really get from animal products. So that would be the one thing. If someone said to me they're thinking of becoming a vegan, absolutely fine. You can still get vitamin B12 in your diet, but it's usually from fortified foods, such as cereals or non-dairy alternatives. So you just have to make sure that you're getting those foods in your diet. The other one you probably get asked about this all the time, is protein.
Yeah.
But again, there's a multitude of ways you can get protein in your diet from being a vegan. Iron is another one you'll probably get asked about, but again, you can get that from spinach. So it's just the same with any other diet, including a wide variety of foods as you possibly can. And it may be that you have to actually eat a little bit more. So, for example, say iron, you'd get more iron in a steak than you would in a portion of spinach, so you might have to eat more spinach. It's different types of iron as well. So in the steak, you've got something called heme iron, which is slightly easier for the body to absorb rather than the non-heme iron that you're getting in dark green leafy vegetables. So again, you just have to eat a little bit more of it, and no one usually complains about eating more. Calcium is another one people worry about, but again, you can get calcium from dark green leafy vegetables, which as a vegan you'll be eating more of. So there's nothing that really can't be replaced, but don't think being a vegan is necessarily healthier. It's healthier if you have a healthy vegan diet, as it is with any other diet. Vegan foods can still be high in sugar and salt, for example, so it's just the same as any other diet. Make sure that if you're cutting out any food groups, you're replacing those nutrients you might be missing. And I know vegans do get a little bit of a hard time, especially about the protein, but there are arguments, as long as you're eating properly, that you can get enough protein in your diet.
But Steve in Durham wants to know, you've touched on this, he's tweeted us, does a vegan diet help with weight loss?
Well, there is research to show that when people do become vegans, they do lose weight. But then it's only if you're a healthy vegan. So as you mentioned earlier, you can have vegans that are sitting there eating chips all day. So they're not going to be losing weight and they're not going to be healthy. So if you're a healthy vegan, yes, it does seem to help with weight. It seems to help with cardiovascular health, seems to be the main one. And that's probably due to having less saturated fats in the diet. So that's the main health benefit people go for. Some people I've spoken to vegans who felt so much better as soon as they were on a vegan diet. And I've also spoken to some people who had to stop being vegans because it just didn't suit their body type. So it's a very subjective thing. I think it is getting a lot easier to be a vegan nowadays as far as eating out's concerned. I mean, I'm in the London area where it's not a problem at all. If you're outside London, it might be slightly harder, but you don't have to go to a vegan-specific restaurant anymore, which I think you used to have to maybe even 5 years ago. You can get vegan options in most restaurants in London, certainly nowadays. So it is getting a lot easier, it's getting a lot more popular, and there's absolutely no reason why you can't be a healthy vegan, but you just have to make sure you're getting the right nutrients, as you do with any other diet that you follow.
And I think you need to be a competent cook, actually, I think is the main thing as well.
Yeah.
You got to kind of know what you're doing to actually, with the vegetables and pulses and fresh vegetables and so on.
But it can also be a bit more interesting because you're introducing lots of different foods into your diet that you probably wouldn't have before. Rather than sticking to your, pizzas and pastas and spaghettis, you're introducing new foods, and it's a whole new world out there of different foods that you're having in your diet.
So are you vegetarian or vegan yourself?
I'm not, no.
Okay, but you're not against it.
I'm not against it. As a nutritionist, it's my job to point out the nutrients that you might be lacking when you cut out any foods. You are going to be lacking in certain nutrients, and my job is just to say, okay, you might be lacking in B12. This is how you make sure you get enough of it. Or these are the supplements you might need to take to overcome that.
Okay. Just stay with us if you can. Harriet Hall is head of digital features at Stylist magazine. Now, you had a go at being a vegan. What was that for, Harriet?
Hi, yes. I feel quite the guilty failed vegan coming on to talk to you today, but I've actually been a vegetarian for 13 years, and I'd always been interested in taking that step towards becoming kind of fully fledged vegan. And I took the 30-day, Peter's 30-day vegan challenge, so sort of veganuary, as it were.
But why did you do it? For moral reasons? I mean, for me, I try and do it because I suddenly had a bang on the head, and I thought, why would I be eating animal body fluids? You know, why would I do that? And then once I started thinking of animal body fluids, which is basically what we're talking about, then I couldn't really eat it with any relish anymore at all. So I thought, why do it? Was that in your mind, or do you just think I might as well go the whole hog?
No, absolutely. It's always there. I mean, it is quite disgusting especially when you phrase it like that, bodily fluids. I mean, I became a vegetarian 13 years ago for kind of both ethical and environmental reasons. Like you say, the idea of sort of eating the animal flesh and the fat, it's just quite revolting. And as are the processes involved in dairy farming and animal agriculture. But also I really was interested in the environmental impact. I mean, we know that the global demand for meat is devastating the planet. And, you know, I'm sure it's been said already that 51% of all greenhouse gases are a result of animal agriculture. So for me, I thought, you know, am I just in this halfway house being a vegetarian? And why don't I try and go entirely vegan? I did actually find it easier than I thought it would. I'm quite a sort of cheese and egg addict, as most of my vegetarian friends are. And I thought, you know, cheese isn't massively good for you, and I could probably live without eggs. And it turned out that having those two things removed from my diet actually wasn't as difficult as I thought. But what I did find was I was really shocked by how many foods actually contained animal products when it seemed that they just didn't need to. I mean, you know, there are certain wines, there are certain alcohols that contain animal products, and you think, why on earth is that in there? So the struggle for me was feeling that I sort of had to read every single label before I took a bite or a sip of anything. And it was much more difficult to adapt, I found, from being a vegetarian to a vegan than I'd initially found from being a meat eater to a vegetarian.
So what happened then? You're back to the eggs and cheese again now?
So I have to say, when I finished the month, I thought, I'm going to change everything. And I do hope one day to attempt it again and to go back to it. I do think a month isn't actually long enough. I think you need to give it sort of 2 or 3 months to really get into it. But for me, it all came down to a cup of tea. That was my weak spot. You know, I just love milky tea. I tried all the alternatives. I tried almond milk, coconut milk, rice, soy. And I just found that it just didn't taste the same. But I am told that, you know, the longer you have the alternatives, the more your taste buds adapt to them. So
I just can't taste the difference in tea. You must have very acute tea sensors on your tongue, because I can't taste the difference between soy milk and dairy milk. But there you go.
I'm obviously a tea aficionado. I don't know, but that was the thing that was most difficult for me. I mean, I was really sort of uplifted by the amount of vegan options that there were out there. If you go and find them, if you know where to go, once you sort of learn about it, the options were myriad. They were brilliant, delicious things to eat. And, you know, like I think Dominica was saying, Wagamama's, Pizza Express, a lot of the main restaurant chains offer vegan options. But for me, when you leave those massive chains, things get a bit more difficult. I loved learning how to cook at home and develop things. You know, I made scrambled tofu instead of scrambled eggs, which sounds awful, but was really delicious. I learned, you know, a lot of ways of kind of cooking pulses and beans and things. But in restaurants, I often found, and I still find as a vegetarian actually, that often you're sort of lumped with this, the meal, there will be something, but it's not what you want to eat.
No.
And that's really frustrating. I mean, I think it's taken decades for vegetarianism to become more accessible. And the whole time I've been vegetarian, I've found a massive change, and it's still not quite standard. So for me, I think veganism is brilliant and we should all sort of strive to get there. But I think we need a real change from institutions as well. You know, places like Pret are offering the kind of veggie options in a massive way, and that's brilliant. I think we need more of that to kind of help people get there.
All right, I've got a show-stopping vegan mayonnaise recipe. I'll be very happy to share with you. I'll send it on to you if you like.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Please do.
All right. Thanks for that. What about Tracy? Tracy, could I describe you as a militant vegan?
Well, yes, Adrian, I have been now for many years, over 15 years being vegan.
Right.
And I'm...
How's your health? How's your iron levels? How's your B12? How's your protein, etc.?
I'm 54 and I'm still alive. So
that's a start, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm guessing that I'm doing okay. But for me, it really is about animal welfare. And I think that if people who did eat meat and dairy, if they allowed themselves to see footage of how animals are, kept and slaughtered, and there is no humane way of slaughtering an animal, then I think that people would perhaps change their minds.
Yeah. I'm not so worried about animal welfare myself. It's not so much welfare per se. I just think however you slaughter the animal, even if there was a completely humane way, it just seems to me wrong that an animal should die. It's kind of unnecessary because there's so much else out there to eat.
Absolutely. It is completely unnecessary now. And I know people are saying, it's difficult and going out and about it's difficult, but you make allowances for that. We have busy lives, yes, but to say that we're too busy to avoid eating a sentient being is abhorrent in my mind. And and as I say, I think if people were witness to it more, then they would understand why there's a big movement to go vegan. I don't know whether you know, but there was a 5,000 people march in London on Saturday, which was totally uplifting and inspiring. All vegans, looking for the same end, really.
Okay, thanks very much for calling in. Shona, are you still there?
Yeah.
Very quick question, Shona. Alf says most of my friends who are vegan drink more beer to replace vitamins. Is this necessary? Do you condone that as a nutritionist?
I don't think it's right for me to comment on that.
All right.
There are healthier ways of getting the vitamins in, but I would never say no to a beer.
Enough said. Dominica from the Vegan Society, thanks very much to you too. Shona as well, the nutritionist, and Harriet as well from Stylist Magazine.
First for news and more live Premier League football than anyone else. This is BBC 5 Live.
Judging by some of the texts I'm getting, ironically, I might get killed and eaten myself for expressing an opinion about veganism, but there you go. In the next hour, a serious case review into the death of a Staffordshire toddler who was stamped to death by her mother has just been published. It's found serious failings. We'll bring you some details on that. Also, insight into the thousands of calls, letters, emails, tweets the BBC's received over the years, either praising or complaining about its programmes. Fascinating stuff, what it tells us about society and views and just the changes we've been through in the last 50, 60 years. And if you want to weigh in on your vegan experiences, then do give us a call, 0808 599 693. Text us on 85058. Just gone 11 o'clock now. Adrian Chiles here with 5 Live Daily.
The top news on 5 Live this hour.
It's past 11. The UN refugee, just getting towards 11:30. We were talking about sort of veganism and how difficult it is to be a vegan or not, as the actor Peter Egan would contest. Well-known animal rights advocate, star of Ever Decreasing Circles, was in Downton Abbey. Peter, so how easy have you found it then? Jeremy Corbyn says he'd like to be vegan, but he can't bear the thought of living without Somerset Brie. I don't know whether he's after votes in Somerset, but he did actually just keep saying Somerset Brie. But
that'd probably be a vote winner, wouldn't it? Yes. Well, I find it incredibly easy and exciting, and I think the only thing I ever missed when I switched 2 years ago, I've been a vegetarian for about 8 years, and then I switched 2 years ago to being a vegan. I missed chocolate for a while, but I don't miss it at all now because there are so many great alternatives. There are also terrific alternatives to cheese as well, so there isn't anything that you need to miss specifically. But like everything as far as our taste buds are concerned, you need to sort of train yourself a bit. Like I remember as a kid, I used to hate the taste of coffee, and I used to hate the taste of tea. And then as you got older, you actually found them rather lovely. And so it's really adjusting your taste buds to a new regime. And once that's happened, I now find the idea of milk rather disgusting. And if I smell it now, I find it rather awful. But the whole thing, as far as I'm concerned, and the thing I think that really focused my head into my mouth, for want of a better image, is how shocking I find the industrialized slaughter and the animal agriculture. So those drives really conditioned my head and my heart into my taste agenda, for want of a better thing.
With me, it was a non-industrialised slaughter. I was up close and personal with a fellow with a knife, and it was a halal slaughter. It was for Eid in Istanbul, and I saw a lamb dispatched. And it's just, I don't know, just that moment of death. I think it just seems unnecessary.
It's awful. But, it's just terrifying, and it's so shocking, really, in a modern society that we feel that we have to kill animals in order to give us taste.
Right. But listen, Louis in Bedford makes a point, which is fair enough. He said, why is humans eating animals any different from animals eating animals? We are mammals, and it's a fact of life that we're top of the food chain.
Well, it's different because we have choice. And it's also different because animals don't slaughter in excess of 50 billion of a species per year so that 6 billion of a human species can eat them. I mean, there are natural predators, and I think biodiversity is essential for our planet. But we are destroying biodiversity. Also, if one is comparing the appetite of an animal for an animal, are we then going to visit a tiger for a medical diagnosis? There's no point in comparing.
But also, taking the lead in animal behaviour, in human behaviour from animals, well, we don't. Dogs go around sniffing each other's bottoms. We don't do that, do we? At least not where I live. We don't do that. I don't know about what actors get up to, but somebody else says, Mark in Suffolk says, I treat vegans as I do religious people. I'm quite happy for you to live your life in any way you do and believe what you want, but I strongly object to you telling me how to live my life or what I should believe. But do you think you give more stick or get more stick as a vegan?
I think without question you get more stick as a vegan because the whole of the advertising world bombards you with meat eating. I don't see the advertising world bombarding those people who feel that vegans take the high moral ground with vegan recipes or vegan food. Wherever you look, whenever you switch the television on, it's hamburgers, pizzas, meat. Happy cows can't wait to die in order to give a meal to a carnivore. And I think that's really just a rather ridiculous statement made by somebody who doesn't want to think about what they're doing.
Okay, Peter, thanks for that. I mean, you got the name for it. Are you known as Egan the Vegan?
It does actually happen quite a lot. I'm rather pleased about that. And I'm also thrilled to be involved with the vegan movement, which is really so exciting and so imaginative.
Okay. But in Downton Abbey, surely you must be called upon to wear leather shoes and woolen clothes.
I try as much as possible to wear my own shoes, which are eco-vegan, and not to wear leather products, and certainly not to eat any kind of animal products at all.
Yeah.
It is just the most exciting, non-cruel, compassionate way of life. And at my age, I'm 70, and I just find myself being thrilled. And I go to a lot of vegan events, and what thrills me is seeing so many young people, so many young entrepreneurs producing such magical stuff. It's really exciting.
Thanks very much indeed, Peter Egan. Just one text that's giving me food for thought. Downsy in Aintree says vegan clothes, ? So they wear man-made fibres instead, I suppose, made from petrochemicals produced from oil, which is an animal product itself if you go back far enough. Not heard that one. I suppose it's a fair point, is it? Don't know. I'll have a think about it. It's just gone 11:30.
More live Premier League football than anyone else. This is BBC 5 Live.
With the 5...
Thanks for that, Guy.
The latest...
I'm just hoping nobody asked me for that for Christmas. Kenny in Glasgow, just going back to the vegan business. Vegan. I'm not a vegan, says Kenny. But your man's comment about oil and oil-derived products is wrong. Oil came about as an after effect of animals dying, not about being killed to produce a product. Yeah, but actually, I think a real true vegan might dispute that. And Simon in Tring says, I'm a vegetarian for over 33 years and I'm slowly going vegan. It's difficult to give up milk products. Vegan are gentle souls. I'm not sure about that. I've met a lot of very angry vegans. I just don't understand the vitriol from meat eaters. No, actually, nor me. Definitely. I'd love everyone to be vegetarian, vegan, but I will not throw back similar vitriol. Live in peace. Question mark, says Simon in Tring. Simon, are you a regular contributor? Simon in Tring rings a bell for me, I must say. For as long as the BBC has existed, which is nearly 100 years, people have been getting in touch to praise and complain about its programmes, thousands of phone calls, letters, and then emails and tweets. The writer Colin Schindler had a brilliant idea to go through the archives to just look through the best correspondence. Colin, amazing idea this. How easy was it to get hold of all these things? Is it